Hi there, everyone, and welcome to Paper Wishes Weekly Webisodes. I'm Sarah Newman, and I'm excited to bring you the 28th episode of Mixed Media, The Paper Wishes Way. Today, we're going to play with a really fun medium from Creative Expressions called Pixie Sparkles. These are a mica-based powder that come in a range of fabulous shimmery colors. And because they're water reactive, you can do so many different techniques with them, using cardstock, chipboard, and even, surprisingly, acetate. We're going to look at some fun ways to use the sparkles to create easy mixed media backgrounds and more. I'm really glad that you're here with us today, so come play with us. Okay, let's start with our color palette so you can see what these Pixie sparkles look like when they've been applied to cardstock. I've done a simple swatch sheet here showing all 8 of our colors. So we have Beyond Blue, Groovy Grape, Coral Crush, Purple Affair, Zesty Lime, Fuchsia Rose, Pale Blush, and Teal Marine. Now I've done all of these colors right onto white cardstock. With the Pale Blush, I wanted to show you what that looks like on black cardstock. So you can get really beautiful effects on white, but don't forget when you're working with these, and in fact any of these, you can get some really beautiful effects on black card as well. Now, besides the beautiful color, you've also got shimmer in here because of the mica. So I think you can see it really well on the Coral Crush, how that metallic gold is shining here. So this is the beauty of the Pixie Sparkles. Is not only are you getting the beautiful, rich colors, but you're also getting that soft, subtle, iridescent shine on here as well. Now, of course, you can use these colors independently, but you can combine them as well. So the blue and the teal look really pretty together. Of course, working in some of that zesty lime with any of those cool colors. The coral and the pale blush look beautiful together as well. So there are lots of different combinations that you can experiment with. Okay, so how to put your Pixie powders to use? Well, let's take a look. I'm going to move aside my swatch sheet and bring in just a plain piece of white cardstock. Now this is fairly sturdy because I know I want to add some water on here. So what I'm going to do is have my cardstock on my craft mat. It's going to be really important for protecting my work surface. And I've got a mister bottle with some water in here. Now what I want to do is find which Pixie powder I want to use. I'm going to work with the Groovy Grape. And I want to give this a bit of a shake before I start to use it. Because there is mica in here, sometimes that can settle down at the bottom. So you want to make sure to give it a shake so that you've got that mixed in. Okay, just take off that cap and then I'm ready to go. Now the first thing I want to do is mist my cardstock, and I'm going to mist it on both sides just to prevent it from curling up too much. So got this ready to go. Then what I'll do, I'm just going to hold my Pixie Sparkles over my wet cardstock. You can see the nozzle on here. That's just going to give me a nice even application. Okay, so I tap that on there, and then I can come back with a bit more water. This is already starting to react with the water on here. But I can come back and add as much or as little of the water as I want to. Maybe I want to add in a little bit more of this grape, really beautiful color. So let's spritz some more water on here, and you can start to see that there's a little bit of blue in here as well too. Maybe just to pick up on that, let's bring in a bit of the Beyond Blue and tap in a little of that color too. Ooh, this is going to be pretty. And again, you're watching that powder react with the water, and you can add as much or as little water as you want to. Really, really beautiful effect. So now what I would do is just let this dry. And you can let it air dry. You can also zap it with a heat tool if you want to. I prefer to let it air dry because I think it will create a really pretty look. Okay, now what I'm going to do is gently move this to one side. I'm going to bring in another piece of cardstock here, just plain white. And let's take a look at another way you can use this. So I've got a cup with some water in it. I also have a bit of the Fuchsia Rose Pixie in here. And I'm going to grab my brush and just mix this up a little more thoroughly. until I've got a beautiful kind of watercolor effect. Now do, again, be sure to shake your bottle of Pixie before you put that in there, just to make sure that you're getting the mica powder mixed in there. And you just simply paint this onto your cardstock. Now I did not mist the cardstock with water first. I'm just painting straight on here. And that's going to give me a really pretty and soft effect. Now, if I want to add a little bit more dimension, I'll bring back in my fuchsia. And while this is wet, I'll just tap in a little bit more of that powder. And again, just let the powder react with the water. See how you like it. If you want a little bit more movement on there, just give another quick spritz or two of water and take a look. It's so pretty, just really beautiful and super easy to do. Okay, now since I've got my little cup of fuchsia, I'm going to bring in another quick piece of cardstock and my trusty Distress splatter brush, because I have to use this. If I've got a medium, I'm going to try it with my Distress splatter brush and see what happens. So I'm just going to pick up some of the color on here and splatter this onto my cardstock. Again, as much or as little as you want to. This is going to give you a little bit different effect, a little bit more control in terms of where that splatter is going. Okay, so that's one other fun way to use your Pixies. I'm going to move my brush out of the way. Now I've got quite a lot of leftover watery Pixie on here on my craft mat. So what I'm going to do is just add some more water here and just really mist this up, get it nice and watery. Set that aside. Got another piece of cardstock on hand. And let's see, what haven't I used? I'm going to bring in, let me see. How about some of this Coral Crush? Let's tap in some Coral Crush into the mix. And now I've got a real blend. And let's just do our craft mat smoosh. This is a really technical term. And see what a pretty effect you can get with this. Whoops, as much or as little as you want to do. It's okay if you drop it in there. And you can get either a really soft kind of watercolor look. You can let the color slide from one side to the other. If you want more layers, you can definitely do that as well. You can also, let me bring in another piece of cardstock. It's a good thing I've got a pile on hand. I'm going to bring this piece in and I'm only going to do a portion of it. I'm kind of holding up one end and then I'll slowly roll that up. So you can actually get just portions of your cardstock as well. And in fact, if you let this dry and then add a stamp sentiment or something else up here, you could get a really pretty effect from that as well. And of course, because these are water-based, it's going to be super easy to clean up from your craft mat. So this is definitely one of those techniques that can get a little bit messy, you can see from my hands, but cleans up really nicely as well. And then you end up with some really beautiful pieces that you can use right away for your card backgrounds. You can do die cutting, you can stamp on them once they're dry, and so very much more. Okay, so now that you've seen lots of ways to apply your Pixies to cardstock, of course this will work on chipboard as well, let's take a look at a few card examples. For this card, I've created a background using the Coral Crush Pixie Sparkle, and I just tapped that color onto a piece of white cardstock and added a misting of water. And that's going to give me this really beautiful coral and gold effect. Now I've layered on top of this a die cut background, and the one that I'm working with is the fancy quatrefoil background. And I die cut this piece from gold hammered paper and then laid that on top. And I secured that down with sticky specs, and that just helps to ensure that everything is held down with a minimum of mess. Now the gold mica in the Pixie Sparkle coordinates really nicely with the hammered gold. It also coordinates nicely with my gold dazzle sentiment and also my butterflies on here. Now this butterfly, as well as the tickets and the ephemera, these are from the Coral Mini Collection from 49 and Market, which also has the background paper that I've used, as well as these beautiful laser die cuts. Now for the card inside, I have a little bit more continuation of the same technique on the front, except this Coral Crush background is made with a lot more water and a lot less powder. So I've got more of the white cardstock showing and just little areas of that beautiful shimmering color. Again, I've added on here some more of the hammered gold die cut paper and then more of the die cuts from the 49 and Market collection. So that's one example. Here's another one. And with this card, I've done my Pixies onto chipboard shapes. And the chipboard is really a perfect surface for the Pixies because, of course, it's nice, thick, and sturdy and can hold up to a watery medium. So here I've tapped pale blush onto a circle chipboard shape. Underneath is a scallop circle with fuchsia rose. Again, just tapped and misted, a really simple application. As with the first card, I have a simple little collage of flowers and a die cut plus some dazzles. Now, one thing about the collage to note, if you like creating card focals like this, one thing to keep in mind is creating a vertical and horizontal layout. So you see both my flower and my twirly wire are vertical, but my sentiment and my border, both this paper strip and my dazzle borders, are horizontal. This creates a nice sense of balance. And of course, the circular shapes of the chipboard balance the straight lines of my card. Now for my card inside, I have another strip of that beautiful 49 and Market paper, plus more dazzles to finish off my message. This card shows using a Pixie Sparkles background, again layered with a background die on top, but it's got two things that set it apart from our previous card samples that I want to be sure and point out to you. So my background here that you can see, this is both fuchsia rose and purple affair splattered on with our distress splatter brush technique. So I've done both of those onto one piece of white cardstock to really create that combination. Again, I'm letting a lot of the white cardstock show in here, so I've got some nice contrast. Now for this middle area here, I've applied Coral Crush onto a chipboard heart, but I've got some paint going on here as well. So let's take a look at this technique. I'm going to move aside my card, and although I'm working with a chipboard heart in this case, for this one I'm going to do this onto white cardstock, and you'll be able to see the same effect. So I'm using the Desert Sand Dilutions acrylic paint for this, and what I've got is a little palette of some of that paint. I've got my brush on hand, and I have my Coral Crush Pixie as well. So that's all ready to go. And what I'm going to do is just grab some of this paint and apply it right onto my cardstock. So just a basic coat of paint on here. Now, while this is wet, I'm going to tap on my Coral Crush. I'm adding some of that on here, and then again get my mister bottle and add some more water on here. Again, same philosophy. You can add more water to really have that spread out. You can also let it be spattery, or you can come back again with your brush and smooth some of that color out. So that way you're really mixing it in with your wet paint and creating a really soft and pretty effect. Now when this dries, you're going to not only have that beautiful shimmery of the mica, but you will also have that nice neutral of the desert sand paint on here. So once you let that dry, then you will have an effect that looks like this. You can see here on my heart. And if I tilt it, I think you can see the shine on there as well. So once that dries, you'll have that gorgeous mica adding to the effect of your painted heart. And again, that is a chipboard heart and the Dilutions Desert Sand acrylic paint. And if you're wondering about this beautiful bird cage, this is from the Hearts, Flowers, and More Dazzles collection. And I've simply placed it on top of a bit of that gorgeous 49 and Market pattern paper. The butterfly and the clock are laser die cuts, and I've just overlapped the elements and put them slightly off center. You can still see the heart shape, but it's really creating a nice collage focal on here. Now for my card inside, I have another layered bird cage, and I've got a die cut and again another dazzle on here. Okay, now we've talked about porous paper and cardstock and chipboard. Well, what about using Pixie sparkles on a non-porous surface? Let's take a look. This technique is one I learned from creative expressions designer Jamie Rogers. So Jamie is the king when it comes to Pixie techniques, and he has a way to use the Pixie sparkles on acetate. So of course, if you just add the powder and water, the color won't stay on the acetate because it's a smooth surface and there's nothing for it to cling to. So Jamie's trick is to use some white glue. And I'm using the Creative Expressions glue for this, as Jamie has suggested, and it does the trick perfectly. Okay, so I'm going to move aside my card project here and also my package of acetate. I wanted you to see that it comes on 8.5 by 11 sheets, but I've just trimmed down a piece so that I can work on a smaller surface. And I have a piece of white cardstock underneath here just so that you can see the color as I'm adding it on here. Okay, I'm going to pick up a little bit of my white glue with my finger, and I'm just going to rub it onto my acetate piece. Okay, and it's okay if you leave some gaps in here. That's what Jamie says, so that's what I'm going with. So I'm going to leave a few little gaps in here, but otherwise I've pretty much got my glue on top, and then I'm going to mist this with a little bit of water. Just give a couple of mists there. And let's see, I've got the Purple Affair, so let's tap on some of this color on here. Okay, and then again, I'll give a little mist. And we can watch that beautiful color reacting with the water. And let's see, I'm going to add in some pale blush as well, because we haven't played with that one yet. You can start to see how it gets a little bit addicting. Just start pulling them all out and mixing and matching, and they go together so beautifully. Okay, and then another quick mist of water. Again, as much or as little as you want to on there. But I think you can start to see how the color is mixing together and reacting with the water. And yet, once this dries, I will have a piece that I can put to use. Now, what I would suggest you do, the acetate from hot off the press is heat resistant, but instead of using a heat tool, I just let this air dry, and it really didn't take a huge amount of time. Of course, depending on how much water you've added into the mix, that will have an impact on how long it takes to dry. But I just let this air dry, and then I'm ready to put it to use. So let me show you another piece that I've done. Now this one is with the Coral Crush. And again, like Jamie said, I left some gaps in here. But what I wanted you to see, just pull this off a little bit, is how it looks, first of all, on white cardstock. That's quite pretty. But I've also got the chance to put it onto some of that pattern paper from the 49 and Market set. That also looks nice. I can put it onto this piece that I think we did our craft mat smoosh with this one. And that also looks really nice. And then my first one here, which is some of that spattering, that can also be layered on top. Now, if you're wondering how to glue down the acetate, again, I would just recommend a light application of some white glue, or stick glue can do the trick as well. You can also, of course, use some mixed media effects such as stapling it on or brads and that type of thing as well. So you've got some options with that too. Now another one that I wanted to show you, this is a piece that I've done with the teal marine. And this is again the acetate, but this is onto a square piece of chipboard. So I've glued this on using the white glue. And I just thought how quick and easy this is to create a card focal. Here's the scalloped square, and I've painted on some of the teal marine. If you just layer this one on top of the other, you have a really nice focal area for even, like, here's a dazzle that's up on some pattern paper. You could just pop something together quick and easy like this, maybe add a sentiment down there, and you've got a nice card focal ready to go. Something tactile, a little bit shiny, full of really beautiful color. Couple of other little things that I wanted to show you. Let me bring back in my tag in a bag. And this is a cutting die that creates not only this sweet little bag, but also the tag that fits inside. So here I've got 2 die cuts. This is from the Stems and Leaves collection. So I've just used my Zesty Lime and Teal Marine to create some acetate pieces, which I've die cut, and then just glued these right on top. Now my bag has been made with Zesty Lime, and that's just been tapped on and misted. This piece here is some of the Teal Marine, which has been craft mat smooshed. There's a verb for you. And then I've added some dazzles and a little bit of ribbon on here. For the tag, again, I've got some of the Zesty Lime and also the Teal Marine and more dazzles, including some really pretty little butterflies. So then the tag will fit just right inside here. It makes a nice gift for someone who may be needing a hug today. So a couple of others that I wanted to show you with these leaves, there's another leaf shape in that collection, which I really like. And so I made another die cut leaf from this just to show you that you can get some different looks. And then I was playing around with some stamps. So you can see I really went to town with these Pixie sparkles. I just couldn't resist. So this is a jar stamp from the Farmhouse stamp set. I stamped this with black StazOn. Now this is important. And then I spritz the Beyond Blue Pixie sparkle so that it's water inside. Now, the reason the StazOn is important because you don't want to use a dye ink, which isn't going to stay on the acetate and will definitely smear. So StazOn is going to be your best friend in this case. Now, if you're wondering which side of the acetate I'm using, this is the side that has the Pixie applied to it. So I've flipped it over and would adhere it down onto my cardstock like this, which is pretty much how I use all of those pieces. So rather than working with the side that I've applied the Pixie powder onto, I flip it over and then adhere it onto my surface. And if you're using a stick glue or the white glue, always apply the glue onto the paper or cardstock rather than onto the acetate. Just helps to create a smoother attachment and a little bit less mess. Okay, so these are just a few of the techniques that you can do with Pixie Sparkles from Creative Impressions. I've got to say they are a ton of fun to work with and made for a very enjoyable weekend for me. And a big thanks to Jamie for his inspiration as well. A big thank you as well for joining me today and for being a part of the Paper Wishes family. We're really glad that you're here with us. Do be sure to leave a comment because we would love to hear what you think. So today we have worked not only with our background papers, as well as our acetate, as well as our chipboard, and so much more. And we would just love to hear what you think of today's webisode. Each item can be purchased separately, and you can see them below. However, we've also bundled them into a creative money saver just for you. For the money saver, just see this webisode on paperwishes.com.